Well, good morning. Patriot Radio News Hour. This is Wednesday. Joe went down to Tijuana to get a tequila, so he's taking the day off and won't be joining us. It's going to be nice to be able to go down to warmer confines. I know that here in Colorado, I don't watch the news as much as I used to, and especially a lot of people they watch the news just for the weather. It's supposed to be frozen and cold this weekend, maybe snow, and I lived in Colorado my whole life, and never really gotten used to the snow and the cold, but it's coming. I guess I'm glad it's the weekend. I mean, it's always trouble when you have to go to work, and drive to work in the snow and the cold, but. I don't know, maybe in some future version, future world, maybe I'll move to Arizona with Joe or something, or go down to Florida or something, and not have to worry about snow and ice and cold. But there was a short period of my life I thought I was kind of liking the cold again, and I was kind of liking the snow, and it's kind of been nice. It seems like Colorado's getting less and less snow every year. I don't know what you want to call that, but. I will battle through it. So will you. And obviously, in Arizona, you're listening. You don't even know what we're talking about hardly, except for what snow is. But this is the Gold Show. I'm coming up on 7 years being a part of the Patriot Trading Group, Gold and Silver. The number to call to buy gold and silver is 800-951-0592. I can't say enough about the advantages and the benefits of owning gold and silver. Joe comes on every day. He's talking about the numbers, what's going on today, what's going on next week, what just happened last week. He keeps you up to date on the numbers of looking at the economy specifically and how that's going to affect gold in the near term. I've always looked at gold as with a historic eye. I like the history because the history of gold will tell you what's going to happen. It seems to me that a lot of the economic decisions today, locally and nationally and worldwide, are kind of preset. I think it's rigged. I think the whole thing is rigged, and because of that. There's only so much gold in the world. There's only so many cows walking the earth. There's only so many cars they can get, on the roads. There's commodities, things that have a certain value for whatever it is. Buying homes, they could build more, but it seems like the more homes they build, there seems to be more people that need them. Population is still growing, no matter. At least the numbers that they give us. And so with that, gold will always have, as a commodity, a certain value, especially versus how many people are actually walking the earth. They can only dig up so much of it and add it to the pile, and then there's more people that need to buy it. And in recently, last handful of years, suddenly central banks, which don't like competition for their funny money, they start buying gold. Economic winds are shifting, and they're buying so much gold that they're driving the price up and making it hard for the average guy, you guys listening, to buy it. And the price, usually when you guys, the retail buyers, slow down on the buying and don't buy it, it usually will affect the price at some level. But it's just not. Gold is staying up. It looks like it has a trajectory that's going to continue to go up this year and the next year and so on. I don't see 2025 gold prices. Let me check the up to the minute prices. I got gold up about $1.50 at 26.78, 26.80. Silver's doing really good today. It's up about 43 cents. But at $2,680, I don't see gold ever repeating what happened in 2011 yet. I think something like that could be repeated, but I don't see a bailout the size of the 08, 09 bailout happening, and then the Fed secretly printing $29 trillion, telling the public that they printed $5.5 trillion, and then saving all the institutions, the banks, and the countries that were all going to fail. the entire world was going to fail. There was the behavior of the world is the sky is falling. That was happening in 2008, 2009. The people that understand this, the Joe level and higher of the economic system, these big banks, these big financially interested fellows, the sky was falling. They saw the end. They saw the end of the economic system, and through the money magic and the magic of controlling the televisions that you watch and the screens on your phones that you look at, they convinced people that they could just print a bunch of money and plug all the holes in the dam and live to fight another day, which is exactly what happened. Now, gold was overbought in 2011. It came way down because all that money didn't go into circulation. The 2,680 gold that we have now should continue to keep going up. The printing that they did in 2020 around the COVID emergency was put into circulation. It was to resolve banking issues that were started in 2019, and this cycle is going to keep on going. And if we have a economic system is completely, the sky is falling, watch out, because then the gold you should have bought today that you should have bought last week or a month ago, you're looking at gold prices that will just, skyrocket. I mean, during COVID, nickel, another commodity in China, it took off so fast and was getting so out of control that they shut the nickel market off. I believe we'll be seeing stuff like this in the silver and the gold markets possibly in the future if they lose control. And otherwise, this trajectory of gold going up and continually going up is going to keep happening. So we'll talk a little bit about gold. I'll cover the special and got a little Andy Schechtman audio clip to play, so stay with us. 800-951-0592. Patriot Trading Group, gold and silver. Gold's up modestly today. Like I said, Joe is out today, enjoying a margarita in Tijuana. So I'm pretty sure he'll be back tomorrow, but if not, you'll have me for 2 days. Gold special. I'm just going to keep yesterday's gold special. And sometimes you say, I'm just going to do the same thing as yesterday. It sounds kind of boring, right? It sounds kind of, kind of tedious. $20 gold pieces, $2,775 is going to seem like a dream price in just a scant few months and years. I know that because just a few years ago when I came on to Patriot, I was selling these same gold pieces for $1,250. And that's just a short few years ago. I think you're going to see a doubling up of the gold price in the next few years. I think some of the things that are getting ready to happen are going to be so extreme that the world at large isn't really going to be worrying about the gold price. They're going to be looking at all the stuff that's on the news, and gold's just going to take off when nobody's looking. You're going to have, $4,000 gold, $5,000 gold, $6,000 gold. And for anybody that's listening, I think that, $10,000 gold, I know some people would think, well, that's just, it just doesn't seem right. I can't see gold from the 2,500 range to 10,000, a 4X fold. Yeah, but it's already done that. When gold was selling in the early 2000s for $250 an ounce, then at the highs in 2011, it was selling for $2,000. That was almost a 10X rise. It came back to about $1,250, but $250 to $1,250, that's a 5X rise. From $1,250 on these $20 gold pieces to $2,775, you're more than 2X in just a handful of years, and it sure seems like it's going to do it again. So call the number. I highly suggest you get your gold portfolio a little heavier today. The number is 800-951-0592. 800-951-0592. $20 gold pieces, $2,775. The first segment I was talking a little bit about just, it's going to keep going. If you look at the history of gold and you look at geopolitics, the politics of this country, and you see what they've done since the central bank was put into place in 1913, the Federal Reserve, you can just, decade after decade, you see the major events pushing gold to these higher prices, while the United States government makes gold illegal in 1933. They pull the gold out of our money. 1964 is the last year that we had silver in our money. I mean, it was still the silver was a little different. They literally pulled all the gold out in 1933. If silver was a little different, they stopped making silver coins, and you had the copper nickel, silver-looking coins. But as of 1965, that's what they made, and slowly but surely, people like my great-grandfather was pulling half dollars, quarters, and dimes out of change and putting them in jars. I literally have Alka-Seltzer, the little skinny Alka-Seltzer jars they used to make. My mom, a few years ago, she searched the internet and found in the collector's items these old bottles for stuff we used to have, because everything's plastic now. It's collector's items to get these old glass bottles, but my great-grandpa would take silver quarters, and they fit perfectly in the Alka-Seltzer bottles. And every time he got quarters, he put them in there. And then myself, as a great-grandchild, anytime we would get to Windsor, where he lived, and visit, if I was smarter, I should have visited him once a week. But he would give a silver quarter to my brother and myself every time we showed up. And I'd hand those off to my dad, and he'd put them in a box somewhere for us to have later. And so my mom found some of these Alka-Seltzer bottles on, I don't know, eBay or wherever she found it. And one Christmas, she put quarters in it, filled quarters in, and gave it to the kids and the grandkids or whatever for Christmas presents. But silver left the money in 1964. 1965 was the first year they started making these nickel copper copies of silver coins. And every decade, something new, that to slowly but surely make it so that financially we are uneducated. We're trained to be workers, not business owners and entrepreneurs. And they don't want us to know about things like gold and silver, which holds, that's your savings, that's your rock. Gold is essentially a rock, right? It's a mineral. Its properties make it perfectly suited to be money. It's been put into jewelry for thousands of years, which is a value that you hold literally around your fingers or your neck or your ears or wherever you wear the jewelry. And it's a good time to get in. And so as we talk about these cycles, these reasons that gold just keeps going up because the system is rigged to make you a wage slave and to spin in the rat wheel, gold and silver is, for people that take the time to learn, a safe haven for your savings. Well, how do I know gold will keep doing what it's doing? Why do I think it's going to keep accelerating? The price of gold will start to accelerate. And I'm looking at months and years at a time. I don't know exactly what it'll do the rest of today or tomorrow or next week exactly. I have my suspicions, what I think, but as month after month goes on and year after year goes on, the price will keep going up because it's broken. I was going to play an Andy Schechtman clip. Maybe I'll play that in the next segment. I got Kentucky Representative Thomas Massey. I'm playing this, and it's not really very political. It's about the spending that's getting ready to go on in March of this year, late March, early April. You're going to hear him talk about it. Listen in to what he's saying, because this is the irresponsible spending and financial wizardry of the system. And he so honestly states it. It's so hard to get anybody to even in Congress to even understand this, let alone speak it out loud in a hearing. But let's listen as to why gold and silver is going to keep going up, because our government's going to keep spending us into oblivion hand in hand with the central bank. Check this out.
Political theater. I'm going to call out both sides right here. It's all posturing as fake fighting. We all know where it ends up. This is Groundhog Day. I don't care if the Democrat is the speaker or Republican is the speaker. We always get a CR in September, and then we get an omnibus. Sometimes there's a twist on that. We might get the omnibus before Christmas, but if we're not good, it comes after Christmas. But that's what's going to happen. And in the meantime, it's political theater. We've got it's good theater. We've got great writers. I wish they'd just come up with a new plot. It's the same plot every fiscal year. What should we be doing? It's already been discussed. We should have done 12 separate bills. But again, whether Democrats are in control or Republicans are in control, we never do the 12 separate bills. Why do we always spend at least as much as we did last year, and why do we never cut spending? It's because Democrats want to grow the welfare state, and Republicans want to grow the military-industrial complex. And we're eventually going to get together, and they're both going to go up. I guarantee it. And both parties are just fine letting the bureaucrats do their thing, which should be our thing, according to Article 1, Section 8 in the Constitution. We are empowered with these things. Most important of the things we do is the funding, and that's the big lever we have. You know, I've sat through now almost 2 years of hearings in this Congress where we've exposed lies at the CDC, shortcuts at the FDA, unconstitutional gun bans at the ATF, over-prosecution of January 6ers at the DOJ, targeting common citizens at the FBI, spying by the NSA, illegal mandates for livestock by the USDA, targeting plant vaccine or transgenic plant vaccine at the NSF, and censorship. The censorship industrial complex of which the NSF is part of. Automobile kill switch at the DOT. Now, these are all things I think most Democrats are just fine with, this kind of totalitarian state that the bureaucrats are pushing on us. But Republicans at least pretend to be against these things. But what are we going to do this September? We're going to fund every freaking one of those things that we have exposed. That is the tool that we have, is the funding. Why are we funding things we don't like? We don't have to. Well, it's because we're addicted to spending. And this doesn't do anything about the addiction at all. So let me touch on one point, too, here that I think is important. A couple years ago, or a summer and a half ago, I suppose now, we did something where we allowed the debt limit to be increased. But as a condition of that, we said if you do a CR that lasts past April 30th, everything's going to get cut 1%. And that, to me, seemed like at least a little tinge of fiscal responsibility was creeping in. But now I notice that this CR, instead of going 1 year and giving us time to do the 12 appropriations bills, is going to go 6 months. Now, let me tell you what's going to happen because this goes 6 months. Number one, it ends in March 28th, on March 28th. Well, the automatic cuts happen on April 30th if the CR went past that. So that is exactly why the Speaker chose a 6-month CR. So we don't have even the chance, a threat to this town, it's a threat of a 1% cut. We don't want to even, this is like T-ball. The 1% cut is on the tee, and Republicans won't even swing at it. So instead, we're going to do a 6-month CR instead of a 1-year CR. That sets up another crisis next spring where we can do another pretend fight sometime around March. And that fight it'll be the same fight regardless of who wins the presidency and who's in charge of the Senate and the House. And we're basically going to get pretty much the same result. But that's 6 months from now. In the meantime, we can kick the can down the road. All of these things that we've exposed and all of these hearings are going to continue to get funded. But wait, there's a bright, shiny object on this CR. I've never seen one of these. I have never seen a bright, shiny object attached to one of these must-pass bills. Oh, wait, no. It actually happens. There always is. A bright, shiny object. A bauble, if you will. A little something to get excited about. This SAVE Act. It's going to save us all. Right? And by the way, this is good political theater. I do like this part of it. That we're going to see almost every Democrat cast a vote so that illegals can vote in our elections. I mean, that's pretty clever on the part of our Speaker to set that up, make you all take that vote. But here's what he's going to do after you take that vote. He's going to take it off. The bright, shiny object goes away. It's Lucy and the football again. And the American public is all revved up. Yeah, we're going to get to save it. We're going to save these elections. We're going to stop the illegals from voting. Really? How are you going to do that in like 6 weeks? I think they're already registered if they're going to vote. Some of them probably already voted. This SAVE Act ain't going to save anything. And particularly because it ain't ever going to become law. It's a false promise to get all the Republicans half pregnant. And then you're going to get fully pregnant by the end of September when you vote for this CR. That is not going to have this. I mean, I hate to break this to you. I mean, the Democrats already know this. I'm not telling you anything special. I hate to break it to the Republicans. You ain't getting the SAVE Act. It is not going to stay on this bill. Why? Because we're going to cave. We're going to cave. Is it a fight worth having? Absolutely, it's a fight worth having. Make those Democrats say they want illegals to vote. Make them take that vote as many times as you can. And then make them go to the ballot box in November. But that's what it is. It's political theater, folks. We all know where it ends up. We've seen it. I've been here 12 years. I've seen it 12 times. I refuse to be a thespian in this failure theater. And with that, I yield back.
There you go. That is Thomas Massie. And if you're asking, well, how does that pertain to the economy, specifically gold and silver? Well, this is keep thinking about what Thomas Massie said. He calls it political theater. Go to the theater, watch a show. Don't look at the money wizards that are spinning all of their magic in Washington, D.C. and the world. And it's going to get worse and worse. The standard of living is going to be dropping even further. Welcome back to Patriot Radio News Hour. The number to call, 800-951-0592. Gold and silver. Our special today is a $20 Liberty. I'm keeping the price. Gold's up modestly today, a couple of dollars. $2,775. Great price. We only have so many of these, I think, that we can hold at this price. I know we have some available, so call over to Arizona, get them on the phone, one of the ladies over there in Arizona, and order one of these gold pieces, 800-951-0592. So played that Thomas Massie piece. He's talking about spending in the government, right? The bankers don't care about the government at all. I think it was Amschel Rothschild that said, I care not who runs the government, as long as I control their money. Okay, so what Thomas Massie was telling you in that piece is it's all political theater. All the weird stuff that some government guy introduces and wants, all those really bad ideas that a lot of conservatives don't like Democrats passing, and then the war effort that usually Republicans want to beat the war drums and go attack some foreign nations for the companies that pay for their campaigns. You got a bunch of self-interested individuals in government, and their re-elections are funded by self-interested companies, all of which should have nothing to do with the government, the federal government. And so spend. The Federal Reserve loves this because all of these companies, all these big banks, not the central banks, they're all collecting a larger fee for their services, grabbing a bigger part of the market in whatever market they're in, whatever industry they're in. And as long as the Fed just keeps printing up the money and putting everybody into debt, the central bank wins. All these big companies have debt. They pay interest on the debt. All these, all of us citizens were paying federal income tax for this huge debt that they somehow convinced the people of this country and the government to find ourselves in. So Thomas Massie's just telling you, look, it's not changing. We're just going to keep spending money. It's political theater. It's just going to get worse. And coming up here in a couple of months, there's a big, huge decision that Thomas Massie was speaking of that's going to be coming to a head. And Joe said it several times. We've been saying some form of quantitative easing. I have a feeling that's not a very positive term. They'll probably call it something else. Even stimulus is probably starting to sound a little hinky for the mainstream media. Come up with inflation reduction. You talk about fighting something, right? You have the fight against cancer and the fight against this, and are they actually fighting cancer? You pour all that money into the fight against cancer. are you really fighting cancer? If you pour money in, if you're a freedom fighter, what are you fighting, right? So what you're going to see is a lot of extra money printed, a lot more debt created, and gold and silver will react and start moving. I'm going to play, I'll probably play part of it on this segment, part of the next. I got an Andy Jaquint piece. He's going to talk about what he believes is heading our way here in the near future with gold and silver. And I would listen to this because I've just presented to you, and we do on the show every day, why the government is not to be looked at is to save you. It's not going to change things economically. It's going to continue to devolve and get worse. You, the individual, is in charge of your own economic future, so you have to decide where do you want to put your savings. I understand you can invest it in this, invest it in that, and try to make a percentage off of whatever you're taking the risk on investment, but gold and silver is not risk. It's just not. Listen to Andy Jaquint. He's going to tell you how gold's not a risk. It's a must-have for your economic future.
We are heading to a place that is going to change the way of life that people in this country are used to anyway. It's going to be a different existence if things play out the way that I think. Since the end of World War II, there's been one Tier 1 reserve, and that's been U.S. dollars and U.S. treasuries. And a Tier 1 reserve is a riskless asset, according to the central banks. And out of nowhere, the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, which was the central bank, decided to reclassify gold as the world's only other Tier 1 asset. Let me just say that slowly. The world's only other Tier 1 reserve asset. Now let's take a look at the 3 years leading up to that. Does it make sense that the Bundesbank made a big deal about repatriating its gold? Does it make sense that Germany, Austria, Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia, and many other of the Eastern European central banks repatriated their gold and started going on a gold buying spree 2.5 years before the BIS announces that it will be reclassified as a Tier 1? Or does it seem more probable that the BIS quietly to their members' banks laid out a framework of what was coming and said, you all need to get your house in order, you need to start to accumulate gold and repatriate that in which is outside the borders, because gold is going to have a central theme in what comes next? I would choose the latter. So in 2020, we get to a point where the banks, again, are massively accumulating gold, but we begin to see some other things that make me pause and wonder, something bigger is going on here. As an example, we see the International Monetary Fund, almost 200 countries from around the world, that was formulated at the Bretton Woods Convention at the end of World War II. At the end of World War II, the Allies met in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, and anointed the dollar the world reserve currency, taking over for the pound sterling. And did a lot of things, like peg gold to the dollar at a fixed rate of $35 an ounce. Classified dollars and treasuries as a Tier 1 reserve asset. Formulated the International Monetary Fund. The IMF was formulated at Bretton Woods. So here we are, 60 years or 80 years later, rather, and they're saying, all these countries from around the world say, we want a new Bretton Woods, a new system. They publicly say on their website. Now, things are really getting interesting. Now you've got the IMF saying, we want a new system. We see a rise of a group of reportables on the Commitment of Traders report, which, let me back up and explain what that is. The COMEX market is the commodity exchange here in the States that sets the worldwide price for commodities. And the exchange publishes something every week called the Commitment of Traders. It's a report that shows the positioning of the largest traders on the exchange, only the largest. And typically it was two brackets. You have the commercial banks and the hedge funds. They call them the specs. The specs would be big funds, money managers that are trading large allocations of gold and silver contracts for investment.
We'll hit that break. I'll play a little more of this on the other side. You're listening to the Patriot Radio News Hour. 800-951-0592. $20 gold pieces, $27.75. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's a Wednesday, and I'm actually feeling pretty good today. Actually, things are good. I've been a little extra busy the last few weeks, but it's been a good thing. But I'm going to play a little bit more of this Andy Jaquint piece. He's talking about the things getting ready to happen in gold. Talking about the IMF wanting a new system. I've said it many times. The last time we had a worldwide economic reset, it was called World War II. And you just heard Andy Jaquint talk about the Bretton Woods meeting, the creation of the IMF. The IMF has a basket of currencies in which they deal in, put China in a handful of years ago, even though they didn't really match up to the standards back then. And I think that's what we're headed for, and things are going to get serious. Anytime you're going to try to take your aging, broken system and retool it and package it in a new shiny box and give it back to the people of the world, usually it comes with some serious emergencies. So that is what gold usually, I mean, you're talking Bretton Woods, he's talking gold was $35 an ounce back then. You know, today I'm selling you an ounce of gold for $2,775 if you call in. 800-951-0592 to get yourself right before the next Bretton Woods meeting, and who knows where gold goes at that point. Let's listen a little bit more of Andy Jaquint here.
Commercials largely are the banks. Now, the commercials have a wider designation. Even a company like myself who hedges gold for legitimate purposes would be considered a commercial. But for this discussion, the commercials are JP, Goldman, Citi, Bank of America, those types of players. And the positioning of those largest traders would be on the COT report, COT, Commitment of Traders. And for all my career, every week it was just the hedge funds or the specs and the commercials. Out of nowhere, in 2020, we see the rise of the third group of reportables, and they are called the others. And they are believed to be sovereign wealth funds and family offices. We can call them the most well-funded, well-informed, influential private traders on the planet. And they start draining the COMEX market in 2020 to a degree that no one's ever seen before. An exchange that was never established to be a delivery mechanism, all of a sudden Pandora's box was open, and we see in the year 2020 this group, the others, the most well-funded and well-informed private traders on the planet. Now, 3 years previous, you see all sorts of goings-ons with the central banks and their clandestine accumulation and repatriation of gold. And now, out of nowhere, there's just a coincidence that the others pop up on COMEX and start to drain the exchange. I would submit that these people either are the central banks wearing a different hat or are very close to the information. And in 1 year, we saw as much silver taken off of the exchange as we saw in the 10 years preceding. We saw as much gold taken off of the exchange as the Bank of Japan holds in their official holdings. This is a trend that we have seen to this day, which we will get to later on. But in 2020, you see the IMF say we want a new Bretton Woods. The central banks are still massively accumulating gold. And now you get these private traders off of COMEX that come up out of nowhere that for all the years I've been reading the COT report every week, with just the commercials and the specs, now there's the others. And the others are taking possession, which is something we never have seen before. A central bank digital currency is coming, and I surmise it would be pegged to gold because it's the only other tier one reserve asset in the world. And why the hell are all the central banks gobbling it up and repatriating it, preceding the announcement of its reclassification? And why are these others draining the COMEX? And why is the IMF asking for a new system? Do you see these pieces are starting to come together? I had no idea where we would go from there, that it would actually lead to where we are now. But we'll get there. Now, mile marker number 2 started a little earlier than 2020, but by 2020, it's really taken shape. The Chinese Belt Road and Rail Initiative. Now, when I was talking about this in 2020, no one knew what it was. But it is probably something that everyone should understand vehemently what it is. And it is the most ambitious infrastructure project ever attempted in human history. And it is connecting kind of the old Silk Road, Asia and Africa, parts of Europe and South America. And it is China's ambition to connect all of these countries and build an infrastructure. On the Belt Road Initiative, you have, as an example, all 13 OPEC producing countries. It's approaching 70% of global human population. 45% of global GDP before industrialization. This is no small deal. It is not just connecting these countries with bridges and roads and railways and maritime channels, but it's also connecting them digitally. So I start saying, look, the need for silver in this infrastructure project is enormous. You are connecting 70% of human population digitally as well in a digital and green environment. Silver started taking a very significant role. Anyway, so in 2020, we have the rise of the others. We have the IMF asking for a new system. We have the Belt Road Initiative. We have the banks accumulating and repatriating gold. You can see things are starting to really take shape. 2021 rolls around and we see massive gold acquisition by Russia, by Turkey, by India, by Poland, by China, by Kazakhstan, by Hungary, by Thailand, by Japan, by Brazil. They're all gobbling up gold. So in 2022, when you are the steward of the world reserve currency, it is not your job to tell who can and who cannot use it. And by weaponizing it, it has incentivized the majority of the world to move away from the U.S. dollar, to find an alternative source of clearing and not using the SWIFT system. Because countries like China, who have sold treasuries for the past 8 months in a row, 150 billion in treasuries, they're not buying them anymore in Japan.
That's pretty much the end of it. Kind of setting you up to understand that a worldwide reserve currency shift, a new worldwide economic system is being put into place. What do you think is going to happen to gold during that? Because we know what happened last time. Gold was confiscated, held back, and blew up.
All of your electronic
cup of Joe next hour. The Patriot Radio News Hour. Sometimes it feels strange when I talk about a $20 Liberty at that price, because I used to sell them, obviously, in years past for so much less. But I get the feeling in a not too distant future we're going to be speaking of these $20 gold pieces in a much, much larger price. As you were listening to Thomas Massey talk about the irresponsibility of government, that they're not going to stand up to this situation. They're wanting all their pet programs funded so that they can get reelected by their big donators, their big lobbyists. The Federal Reserve, the central bankers, they want the world to fall into line and to control every bit of currency and money floating around out there. And if they need gold to congeal this world system into a much tighter knit system like they did during World War II, it's going to head our way. I tell the new gold, if you're new or if you're somebody that's considering buying, you just haven't done it yet, you could always just call us up at the number 800-951-0592. Meet with me, meet with Joe. If you get my cell phone number, my business cell phone number, you can always call me up, and or if you know somebody, call me up, set up an appointment so that you can come meet with us to talk. Because I don't know how many times I've met the simplest story, which really shows the value of gold, which is gold really isn't more valuable. It never gets more valuable. It's the paper Federal Reserve note that loses value. It's their money. It's printed at the top of their bills. Federal Reserve note. It's theirs. They don't think you own it. It's theirs. It's a currency. It's so that you can exist in their system, and they devalue it every year. The $20 gold piece and the $20 bill, paper money from the past before the Federal Reserve was around. The state banks actually printed their own currencies for local areas. And you would think, well, if you're in Michigan and you're printing up currency, and you go down to Carolina, but that money's not really going to work. You're not going to trust the currency. Well, because local banks were allowed to print the currency for local areas, and if your bank was strong, your currency might be accepted by the next state over. Pennsylvania might accept paper currency from a New York bank, as long as those banks knew that they were pinning it to the ounce of gold price, which was $20. People think that's a terrible system, or they tell you, if anyone even looks at it, that, why would you do such a thing? Why would you let? Well, if the local bank is backing up their currency with gold, and they can loan money out based off the value of the assets they're holding, it's a great system. For the entire century of the 1800s, the late 1700s, early 1900s, for some more than 100 years, about 130 years, that paper currency could be brought to the bank and pull an ounce of gold out, the $20 gold piece. Or you could bring the $20 gold piece, put it in the bank, and pull out the paper currency. Both of these things bought you an entire cow. Now you take that paper bill after you put a central bank in place in 1913, 100 years ago, and the $20 bill can't even buy you a steak dinner. But that gold piece for $2,775 that we're offering today still buys you a whole cow. You come and bring that gold to us, we will cash. Give us a call, 800-951-0592. Hopefully Joe will be back tomorrow. We'll see. It might just be me, but